Hello, everyone. My name is Angie Alama, and I am Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Loyola University Chicago. I'm going to toss it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves in a few minutes, but we're actually going to hang out for a couple of minutes, let everyone file in. If you didn't know, this session is actually about navigating PWIs, and we have some great questions that you've submitted, and we look forward to having this discussion with you. So thank you for joining us this evening, and we will get started shortly. Again, welcome to Navigating PWIs, a panel discussion that we're going to have with my wonderful colleagues from various universities. Before we get started, first and foremost, thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Darn, for sponsoring this discussion. If you have any questions, we actually have a wonderful colleague in the background, Allie Young, who's going to be reviewing the Q&A questions that come in. So if you do have some questions for the panel, we may not have time to address all of them because we have so many of y'all joining us tonight. Thank you so much. But we will try to get to as many as possible if they aren't already addressed during the questions that we already have lined up for you. So without further ado, we're going to do introductions. I've already introduced myself, but we're going to start with Perry Watts.
Hey y'all, my name is Perry Watts, and I am a regional recruiter for the University of Colorado Boulder in Boulder, Colorado. That's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Perry.
Hi everyone, my name is Genesis Garcia. I'm an assistant director for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, located in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm actually based here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Thanks, Genesis.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zaina Pasco. I am with UAB, the University of Alabama at Birmingham. I am based here in Dallas, Texas as well, and I recruit the entire state of Texas, as well as a lot of other states.
Thank you, Zaina. So let's kick off this discussion with a standard question. We've been throwing around the term PWI, but there may be many of you who may not be familiar with that term. So panelists, what is a PWI? And then the latter part of that question is, did any of you recruiters attend a PWI?
So I'll go first. A PWI is a predominantly white institution, so it is referring to the racial makeup of the university. And I did attend a PWI. I attended the University of Texas at Austin.
Yeah, Perry spot on with the definition of PWI. I grew up here in Texas, actually in the Dallas area, and I went to Nebraska, which is also recognized as a PWI. So yes, I attended a predominantly white institution.
So I grew up in a small town in Mississippi, and I actually went to the University of Kansas for my undergrad.
Nice. And my experience is the same as everyone else. I second Perry's description of what a PWI is. I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, which used to be a small town. And I went to a predominantly white institution, that being the University of Oklahoma. So since we have all identified ourselves as persons of color who attended PWIs, what helped or each of you during your college experience?
I can start off. So what really helped me through my college experience? So when I went to Kansas, we were in the middle of nowhere, Lawrence, Kansas. Coming from Mississippi, like right around the Memphis area, everyone I went to school with looked like me pretty much. I was terrified. I didn't know anyone near me. I didn't know anyone in the state of Kansas. I didn't know anyone within an hour or 8 hours of me pretty much. But this was something that I was dedicated to doing because they had the major that I wanted. And I just wanted to branch out of Mississippi because no one in my family had ever left. I'll never forget moving into my residence hall. The first time I moved in, the first person I saw was this girl named Destiny. And she lived on my floor and she looked like me. And my whole thing looking up Kansas, I was worried that no one was going to look like me or act the way that I act or just be anything close to what I was. And she was like, oh, I'm from Kansas City. And we had the same taste in music and I liked their clothes and her shoes. And from that first interaction, that was like the start of me finding people that looked like me and her connecting me with her friends that she had already from high school that were also going to KU. And then it's just like living in this residence hall where everyone else kind of just blended in. That definitely kind of kickstarted my career at a PWI.
Yeah, kind of somewhat similar to Zaina. My roommate was from Omaha, Nebraska. She was also a Latina. I identify as Latina as well. And she was from, she grew up in Nebraska. She grew up, with the Huskers. And when you're in Nebraska, there's not much out there anyway. So you're all like diehard Husker fans. And so it's definitely that sense of community that you're going to build. And so, she introduced me to her friends, but what really kind of set it off was that I was really active in our multicultural center that's connected to our student union. I was actually a Palmerston Scholar. Now it's known as the Student Success Program. So essentially I had a mentor who also was a Latina as well. And so it was really great to have that mentor throughout my time as a student who was able to understand my culture and understand like the challenges that I face as a first generation student. And so this program really helps students with the transition from high school to college. They also do heritage celebrations as well. So being able to just be part of those events, being part of MASA, the Mexican American Student Association, Diversity Ambassadors, those organizations definitely helped me get acclimated on campus. So just being aware of some of the organizations that are available on campus really helped me, throughout my transition from high school to college and throughout my time as a student.
Yeah, I would echo my friends here. Getting involved is what helped me. And that's honestly the answer to surviving college, just period, no matter where you go, who you are, getting involved. And so once I started going to different meetings for student organizations and getting involved with the cultural center on campus, going to the Malcolm X Lounge, doing those kinds of things, it was like, okay, I found people who I can connect with, who understand where I'm coming from. And yes, we were all the same race, but it was still a lot of diversity in that community too. And so I sometimes, at panels like these, you'll hear people say things like, well, you gotta just branch out. You can't be with just one type of people, but there's all kinds of people within one race as well. And so don't feel bad about that. Like find places where you feel comfortable, even if you may feel uncomfortable in other spots that you don't necessarily get to choose the makeup of.
I completely agree with everything everyone said so far. I didn't learn the terminology until I started working in missions, but I basically found my own affinity group. And one of the things coming from, like, we're talking about PWIs, but being raised in Oklahoma, which is quite arguably a PWS, a predominantly white state, I had been used to situations where I was surrounded by a plethora of white people and everything. So I learned how to, kind of navigate those situations in high school and in middle school as well. My last 2 years of high school, I actually transferred to a predominantly Black institution, Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that was actually an adjustment for me because I was like, oh, I finally have people around me who look like me. And because we're all in Oklahoma, like a good portion of them, ended up going to OU, which was one of the main factors why I chose to go to school there. But even in a college campus, I didn't see them that often. So I ended up, one of my hallmates actually invited me to a Black Student Association meeting. And then from there, I ended up finding out about Women in Power, which was kind of an offshoot, I'm aging myself right now, of the Million Woman March, which is just a couple of years before. And so we had our own, and I don't remember what our goal was, but it ended up being just a whole bunch of Black women kind of navigating college together, which was really nice. And it certainly helped me during some, really stressful times, just having people that were going through similar circumstances as me. But yeah, I think the main, I guess, thread from all of our responses is the fact that it helps to get involved on campus. And this ties into another question we got is, how do I get involved? How do I find out about affinity groups or, join these different clubs so that I can be involved on campus?
So these orgs are going to chase you down. In my day, it was in person and they hand you flyers and all those kinds of things. These days, I imagine they'll be targeting you on Instagram. There will be hashtags, Snapchat, you name it. And so if you want to be involved, whether it be an affinity group or literally any organization on campus, they're already going to be chasing you down. The thing you need to do is be open to it. So don't hole yourself up in your room. Don't only hang out with your friends from high school. Don't go home every weekend. Just accept the invitation, like they're there. I mean, if you aren't getting those kinds of invitations, if you aren't seeing those people, then you're gonna have to step out. There's gonna be some fair on campus, there's gonna be some student organization office on campus. It's really a matter of you taking advantage of what's already going to be there. And that's true for all of our institutions and probably any other one you're looking at.
Yes, Perry just said it perfectly well. Like, they're gonna chase you down. There's always, social media plays a huge part of just spreading the word out. I know, like at Nebraska in our student union, we actually have a bulletin board. So they're always posting some type of flyers of upcoming events, and just encourage you again, like, to go outside your comfort zone and just exploring like things that may interest you. I think what really helped me get involved on campus and really to meet other people was, one, I was part of a learning community, so I was able to live on the floor with other students who share the same academic interests as me. So that was one outlet you're able to do, because you're meeting people from all different parts of the country. But then also we have like a club fair as well. So right before the semester started, all the first year students would go out in the parking lot near Memorial Stadium, and we would just kind of walk around, play some fun games, get free food, and just kind of see what are some organizations that really interested us. And I would just sign up for a meeting and see if that was something that I really wanted to be part of throughout my time as a student. And you go to the first meeting and you decide it's not for you, that's perfectly okay. It's just a great way to get your feet wet. So definitely there's going to be a lot of flyers going around. You'll see probably a student organization with their table outside of an academic building or the library trying to get your interest. So definitely be open to trying new things.
One of the ways that I actually got involved was through our Office of Multicultural Affairs, OMA, on our campus. And it was an office space, literally, it was connected to the student union, but it was a space that was designed for people of color, first generation, low income. And we all either looked like each other or we all had similar identities, as well as the ones that worked there as well. So one of the first things I did was I was a student ambassador kind of for the OMA. So I was kind of like that person at the fairs, like saying like, hey, like, do you want to join OMA, or do you want to feel connected, and things like that. They did a really good job of connecting us with students that either was our mentor or someone that can kind of be like our big sister or big brother, like someone that we could really connect with. They were usually upperclassmen and they have been through the situations that we were going through, or overall, we just wanted this like safe space. So like they had like the beanbag chairs and things like that. So if something was going on like on campus or in the world, I know the Ferguson, that was really big because it was close to Lawrence or close to Kansas. So by us being in the Midwest, that really hit our campus. So they actually opened up their office, and everyone was just like laying around on the floor, on the couches, because we were just exhausted, or we just needed a place to vent and not have to worry about being judged. And I think that was like one of the biggest experiences that I had that really helped my career at a predominantly white institution.
Now, one of the things that a lot of students really struggle with, just across the board, is just acclimating to college. As active as you may have been in high school, like college is a whole other animal. And we field a lot of questions about how students can kind of plug in as far as like the different resources that are available to them. Can you talk a little bit about some of the different resources that students can utilize once they transition to college and, learn how to manage their time or get, tutoring assistance, any of those different resources, mental health services, all of those different issues that students deal with, pinpoint them, but also talk about some of the different resources that can help in those areas?
So one of the great things about a really large university, and I'll be honest, these are the only ones I know about it, the only ones I attended and worked at, is that there's an office for everything. Like there's an office for, diversity and community engagement. There's also another one for mental health. There'll be a different one for physical health. There'll be a tutoring center, a writing center, multiple libraries. It goes on and on. And so it's kind of hard to list which ones we have because they're all there. Now, at smaller universities, I would venture to say this is true too. It just may look a little different. It may be one office that does a lot of those things. Another office does a lot of those things. It just depends, but I'll let my colleagues jump in on that.
Yeah, I definitely echo what Perry said, especially at Nebraska as a large university, you're going to find these resources available to you. I think my best advice to you is, reach out to your professor, reach out to your admissions counselor and, ask them questions of ways that, what are some resources that, that may be beneficial to you. So again, we're here to make these easy for you. And we want, for you to have a successful college journey. And so we're here to help you. And so definitely ask those questions. It's going to look different for every university, but just know there's something's going to be in place for you to help you along this transition.
Yeah, definitely echoing that. I know some schools do have like these first generation courses. I was a part of this program called HawkLink. Obviously we were the Jayhawks. So HawkLink was an academic retention program, and it wasn't because like my grades were low or anything like that, but it was actually this program designed to assist students of color or first generation in navigating their first year at school. And one of the things that really helped was that we did a scavenger hunt, and they were put like, where would you go if you needed help with this? Or where would you go if you needed to see a therapist? And so I was able to learn campus, learn different resources. But when we actually would have people come in and speak to our class, that also built a really strong connection. Like one of the professors that came to spoke, he was a African-American studies professor, and he just happened to be from Mississippi. So after he talked to our class, I kind of like reached out and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm from Mississippi, and we connected, and I ended up taking 2 of his classes. But that was just like the start of the relationship building. And that was because he came and spoke to my HawkLink class, which was the very first class I ever had at KU. So, and I was like, my mom signed me up, and I was like, I do not want to do this. And she's like, it's okay, you're gonna need it. Like, she's like, it's gonna help you in the long run. I was like, no, I don't want to do a retention class. And it turned out to be my favorite class, where I still keep in touch with literally every professor that came in that class. And I know a lot of schools have those programs. You might not want to do them at first, but they actually turn out to be really fun and really intriguing.
I certainly co-sign what Zaina said. My mother made me be part of a program like that. It was a University 101 class, but I was very fortunate in that whenever I came as a freshman at OU, it was a year where they had been very proactive about recruiting Black students to a program called the MEP program, which is the Minority Engineering Program. trust, I was not an engineering major. I just happened to come in when most of my friends were engineering majors because they've been recruited for that program. There's a scholarship tied to it. But as a result of that, they developed a program where they wanted to retain these students, and you didn't necessarily have to be an engineering major to be part of those classes. And they intentionally kept them small. And I do think it was progressive for the time. I'm talking like late 90s, early 2000s, where we felt free to really, talk about, some of the microaggressions that we're experiencing on campus, and how we get plugged into, different study groups that weren't always made, clear to us by some of like our white professors and stuff. So I really appreciated the fact that my mother forced me to be part of it. And the way that she found out about it was through orientation. So I think my biggest piece of advice when it comes to finding out about your different resources is pay attention during orientation, because one of the main things that all of our schools do is we try to plug you into like these different ways in which you can receive assistance on campus, because more than anything, we want to retain you as a student through your 4 years, through graduation. And one of the ways we do that is by advertising these different resources we have available on campus. Here's the thing, you have to be proactive about seeking them out. There is no, as active as these resources are on campus, there's no advisor that's going to pull you by your ear out of your dorm room. There is no counselor that is going to force you to come and see them. Like if you need assistance, you need to speak up and let us know, because we have the resources available, but you do have to be proactive about seeking them out. Another question that we have kind of along the same lines of resources is specific to diversity and equity and inclusion, which obviously has been an important topic all along, but has been a topic of choice over the last year or so with all of the things going on in the world right now. So for students who want to find that office on campus, how do they reach out to diversity, equity, and inclusion teams at their university?
So I know at UAB right now, we actually, a lot of schools have the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and they have their own website. And like Angie said, like you have to be proactive. Like they're not just gonna come out and say, hey, come look into our office. If this is something you're interested in, I think it's best for you to kind of go through their website and look at programs that they have. I know they do like a lot of trainings, and that kind of kickstarts you being interested more into their program and them like kind of knowing who you are. Pretty much what the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, they're gonna do is try to connect you with other programs like campus programs that they have already in place, or different organizations that are already in place that might fit your intersectionality that you might have. That's going to be the big part of it, but ODI is going to be the big part of like trying to help get you connected.
And to be clear, a lot of schools kind of piggybacking off of what Zaina said. I know a lot of schools, I know the one that we call our Office of Diversity and Inclusion on campus at Loyola is SDMA, and that stands for Student Diversity Multicultural Affairs Office. I had to remember what the A was for, but pretty much most universities have some offshoot of like a multicultural office where you can find out about different events on campus pertaining to BIPOC students, or which would probably appeal to like BIPOC students. I know with our office, if you sign up, try to sign up for one of their newsletters and then come back and tell us that you don't know how to get involved. Because those newsletters, like I get them just so I can stay like, abreast of what's going on our campus. And they are chock full. I'm talking 2 to 3 pages full of different activities going on in campus in which you can get involved. And not just for the overall like group of students of color, but for specific groups like women of color, Black trans women, we have like Black males, we have, pretty much like Latinx students, like it covers the entire gamut. Asian American students, African students. And so there is a group available for you. So if you find that, that center, that office that deals primarily with multicultural student affairs, some offshoot of that, then typically that's going to be your starting point for finding out about diversity and equity on campus. And usually they also have a more formal office of equity and diversity on campus as well. So, but that's usually the easiest, place to kind of tap into for students at least.
Yeah, and if you're having trouble navigating websites, or maybe you've got like 15, 20 schools on your list right now, and you're like, how do I find all this stuff? The quickest way, and I literally did this for all of our universities before we started, just Google the name of the university, diversity. Those two, the first link will usually be to the university's actual website, especially after the past year. We want you to know that we're trying to do the right thing. So we're going to make it as easy as possible for you to find. So after you do your Google, do all the things that my lovely colleagues here suggested about actually digging into the information, but literally name Google, or name diversity, Google.
It's a great piece of advice, Perry. So we are closing out our session. We have 2 more questions. What is some advice that you would give to BIPOC students and their families during the search process, the college admission search process, I should say?
I would say, don't be afraid to connect with your admissions counselor. And when I say connect, ask the question, like, how is diversity on campus? Like, I get a lot of students that they come up to me and I could tell they want to ask that question, but they kind of look at it as like it's a bad word, or like they just cursed at me or something. It's not bad. It's okay to ask about diversity, because we want to make sure that we're not just recruiting you to get you on our campus, and then you're here and you're not feeling safe, or you're not feeling connected. So ask the question. Say like, hey, like I had a student that came up to me the other day and she said, I'm interested in UAB, but I also want to know, like, where would I get my hair done? Like, that's okay. Like, that's an important question that she had, because that's going to be her life. So ask the questions, like, say, what is diversity like? And then I would say challenge your admissions counselor to not just say, oh, we have this percent of students of color. Like, list the resources that you have for what I'm looking for. I know I do that personally because I was that student, and it's like, I don't want to just know about your percentage of Black students you have on campus. I want to know, how can you connect me with these students on campus, or how can you connect me with the resources that we have? So yeah, just ask the question. Don't be scared.
Great advice, Anna. I definitely agree with her. I think my advice is to create a list of factors that are important to you. I know for myself, growing up here in Texas, I wanted to get out of Texas and, try to go far as I could. And, for me, one of the things I jotted down, well, I'm a first generation Latina. I grew up here in Texas where it's very diverse. And so I kind of kept that in mind, and I was like exploring colleges, and I was that person as, sending emails, and I was very scared because as a first generation student, I mean, you don't know what type of questions to ask. So always ask those questions, but just look at your list of factors and, think about, do you want to go to a small or big school? Do you want to go to a very diverse school where you're going to see many students who you're able to identify with as well? And so kind of just think about those things. It will really help narrow down your choices. But again, feel free to ask any questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. We're here to help you. We know it can be a very overwhelming process. So we're here to make things easy for you.
And I echo the same thing. Ask the question, ask it as explicitly as you want to. If you do want to know exactly how many Black students are on campus, ask that. If you want to know, are there any Muslim students on campus, ask that. And then listen to the answer and listen closely. There's a statistic that my office likes me to repeat that I'll tell you right now, I don't always, about us, having a certain amount of students of color on campus. And it's like 20% or so, or something like that. What I'm not saying is that everybody else in that percentage is white, which makes it a predominantly white institution. So you may feel good after I give you that answer, but you may think later, wait, she didn't actually answer what I wanted to know. And so just listen to what we tell you. We're not liars, but we do work for the university.
That is a great point to end on, Perry. Just don't be afraid to dig a little deeper. I know with my students, we do at Loyola Chicago, we have a nice round number when it comes to that question. But I always tell my students of color, this is what the breakdown is. This is how many percentage of each group that you will find. And collectively, that's what that number is. I want to thank our wonderful panelists. Y'all have provided such wonderful insight based on your experiences as both recruiters as well as former students at PWIs. I want to thank you so much for joining tonight. One last time for Perry Watts, Genesis Garcia, and Zaina Pasco. I'm giving you my round of applause. And of course, feel free to reach out to us. I know our wonderful colleague on the back end, Ali, has actually put a lot of our contact information in the chat. And if you have any additional questions, do not hesitate to reach out to us. More than anything, if you take anything away, do not be afraid to reach out to your admissions counselors, because they're basically going to be your gateway into fully understanding everything that, that university has to offer and whether or not it's going to be a good fit for you. Again, my name is Angie Alama, Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Loyola Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and look for video of this discussion on our Darn YouTube channel soon. Y'all have a good evening.